My stepmom yelled, "My daughter is everything you'll never become," at Christmas dinner as my father agreed. So I placed my napkin down, stood up with dignity, and pulled out the Forbes magazine featuring me as Billionaire of the Year while her daughter was facing bankruptcy. Hey dear friends. If this story touches you, support us by subscribing and letting us know your location in the comments. Now let's continue this story together. The crystal chandelier above my father's dining table cast shadows across 23 faces, all frozen in that terrible silence that follows cruelty. My stepmom Victoria's words still hung in the air like poison gas. My daughter is everything you'll never become. My father nodded. Actually nodded. That small dip of his chin shattered something inside me that had been cracking for 20 years. I was 12 when Victoria entered our lives, 6 months after Mama died from cancer. I remember watching her rearrange Mama's photographs, turning them face down one by one. "Too morbid," she'd said, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against the frames. My father said nothing then either. That was his specialty, silence when I needed his voice most. Victoria brought Clarissa, her daughter from a previous marriage. Golden-haired, green-eyed Clarissa who was 2 years older and made sure I knew I'd always be second. He got the bigger bedroom, the new clothes, the college fund that should have been split. "Your father agrees you're not college material," Victoria told me when I was 16, holding my rejection letter from the scholarship program. Later I found it in the trash, unopened. They'd never mailed it. I put myself through community college working 3 jobs. Slept 4 hours a night. Built my first tech startup in a garage with $2,000 saved from birthday cards Grandma sent before she passed. Victoria laughed when I told them about my business idea. "Precious, some people are dreamers. Others are doers. Clarissa's a doer." My father looked at his plate. Now here I sat, 32 years old, listening to my stepmom destroy me at Christmas dinner while my father co-signed my worthlessness. The turkey was getting cold. The evening had started innocently enough, though I should have known better than to expect peace. I'd flown in from Silicon Valley for the holidays, hoping maybe this year would be different. 20 years of hoping had taught me nothing. Victoria had insisted on hosting at my father's house. Her house now, really. She'd redecorated 5 times since Mama died, erasing every trace of the woman who'd actually loved me. I'd arrived with expensive wine and gifts wrapped in gold paper. My cousin Aaron was there with his wife, along with my Aunt Diane, Uncle Thomas, and various family friends Victoria collected like trophies. Clarissa held court at one end of the table, her engagement ring catching the light every time she moved her hand. Her fiancé, some hedge fund manager named Preston, looked appropriately wealthy and appropriately bored. "So glad you could make time for us," Victoria said when I walked in, her tone suggesting I'd committed a crime by being successful. "I know how busy you must be with your little company." She said little company, the way someone might say, adorable puppy. Patronizing and dismissive. My father kissed my cheek without meeting my eyes. Same as always. Dinner conversation had been pointed from the start. Victoria steered every topic toward Clarissa's accomplishments. The engagement. The society wedding being planned. Preston's family connections. "They summer in the Hamptons," Victoria announced as if this was an Olympic achievement. I'd noticed Clarissa drinking heavily, her laughter too loud, her smiles too bright. Something was wrong there, but I was too focused on surviving the evening to investigate. Then Victoria had turned to me. "And you, sweetie? Still doing that tech thing? How charming that you're still trying." "Actually," I'd said carefully, setting down my fork, "the company's doing well. We just closed a major funding round." I kept my voice neutral, non-threatening. Years of managing Victoria's fragile ego had taught me to make myself small. Even my successes had to be minimized so Clarissa could shine brighter. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Funding round. That's nice, dear." She turned to the table. "You know, Clarissa just made junior partner at her firm. Youngest in the company's history." This wasn't true, I'd checked LinkedIn earlier, but contradicting Victoria was like poking a bear. My father smiled at Clarissa with pride I'd never seen directed at me. "That's wonderful," I said, meaning it. I'd never hated Clarissa, not really. She was a victim of Victoria's toxicity too, just a different kind. But Clarissa had learned to weaponize our mother's favoritism, and she smiled at me now with something like pity. Some people peak early, Clarissa said, swirling her wine. Remember when you had that little lemonade stand, and you thought you were such a businesswoman? The table laughed. My stomach tightened. That lemonade stand had been my first entrepreneurial effort at age 8, and Mama had been so proud. Clarissa had dumped it over the same day, claiming it was an accident. I remember, I said quietly. What I didn't say, I remember everything. Every slight. Every dismissal. Every time my father chose his new family over his own blood. Victoria leaned forward, her voice dripping with false concern. Honey, we worry about you. All alone in California, chasing these fantasies. When will you settle down? Find a good man? Have a real life like Clarissa? There was the constant message. My life wasn't real because it didn't mirror theirs. I'm happy with my life, I said, my voice tight. Keep it together, I told myself. Just get through dinner. But Victoria wasn't finished. She never was. My pain was her entertainment, and she'd invited an audience specifically for this performance. Happy. Victoria laughed, that tinkling sound that set my teeth on edge. Darling, you're 32, unmarried, running a startup that probably bleeds money. We're just being realistic. Your father and I want what's best for you. She reached over and patted my hand like I was a confused child. I pulled away instinctively. My father finally spoke. Victoria's right. Maybe it's time to consider something more stable. I could talk to some people, get you an administrative position somewhere. Administrative. After I'd built a company from nothing. After I'd been featured in tech magazines, spoken at conferences, changed an entire industry's approach to cybersecurity. I don't need an administrative position, Dad. My company, I started, but Victoria cut me off with a wave of her hand. Your company. Always your company. Do you know what Clarissa accomplished this quarter? She brought in $3 million in revenue. $3 million. And here you are, still playing entrepreneur like it's a hobby. Victoria's voice rose with each word. I felt the old familiar shame creeping in, the one she'd been cultivating since I was 12. But something else was rising too. Anger. Pure, clean anger that I'd suppressed for 2 decades. My hands trembled slightly as I gripped my napkin. Around the table, people looked uncomfortable but said nothing. They never did. My family had perfected the art of being complicit bystanders. That's not fair, I began. Victoria stood up suddenly, her chair scraping against the hardwood. Her face was flushed and I realized she was drunk. How had I not noticed? She'd been drinking steadily since I arrived, and now the alcohol had burned away whatever filter she normally maintained in public. Not fair, she said, her voice cutting through the dining room. You want to talk about fair? I've spent 20 years trying to help you become something, anything, worthwhile. But you're stubborn just like your mother was. He said your mother like a curse word. Always thinking you were special, always thinking the world owed you something. My chest tightened. Don't talk about my mother. I'll talk about whoever I want in my own house, Victoria snapped. She turned to the table, performing now. Do you know what it's been like trying to guide this girl? She fights me at every turn. Rejects every opportunity. Insists on doing things the hard way because she's too proud to accept help from me. This was a lie. I'd never been offered help. I'd been offered criticism, control, and conditional love if I transformed into someone more like Clarissa. I'd been offered the chance to be grateful for scraps while watching my stepsister feast. The lump in my throat was growing, but I refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of them. My Aunt Diane cleared her throat uncomfortably. Victoria, maybe we should. No. Victoria held up her hand. She needs to hear this. We all do. She looked directly at me and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Genuine hatred. My daughter is everything you'll never become. Successful. Beautiful. Worthy. The words landed like physical blows. Successful. Beautiful. Worthy. As if I was none of those things. As if 20 years of fighting to prove myself meant nothing. I looked at my father, waiting for him to defend me. Waiting for him to remember that I was his daughter, his blood, his first child with the woman he'd supposedly loved. My father looked at Victoria. Then at Clarissa, beaming with pride. Then finally at me. And he nodded. One small movement that confirmed what I'd always feared. He agreed with her. Every word. In his eyes, I was the disappointment, the burden, the less-than daughter who'd never measure up to Victoria's golden child. Dad. My voice cracked despite my best efforts. I hated the hope still alive in that one word, the 12-year-old girl who still believed her father might choose her. Victoria has a point, he said slowly, carefully. You've always been difficult, resistant to guidance. Maybe if you'd listened more, been more like Clarissa, you'd have an easier life. More stable. He wouldn't look at me as he said it. Coward. My father was a coward, and I'd spent my whole life making excuses for him. Around the table, people were silent. Aaron looked at his plate. Aunt Diane looked furious but said nothing. She'd learned years ago that confronting Victoria meant being cut off from family gatherings. Uncle Thomas coughed awkwardly. Preston, Clarissa's fiancé, scrolled through his phone like nothing was happening. And Clarissa herself? She was smiling. Actually smiling at my destruction. Something inside me went very quiet. Very still. The hurt was there, would always be there, but underneath it was something new. Clarity. I placed my napkin on the table carefully, precisely. The movement felt ceremonial somehow, like I was folding up my entire childhood and setting it aside. 20 years of being invisible, dismissed, diminished. 20 years of being told I wasn't enough while watching love and resources pour into a girl who wasn't even blood. 20 years of my father choosing comfort over courage. Choosing his new wife over his grieving daughter. Excuse me, I said quietly. My voice was steady now. The trembling had stopped. I stood up with my back straight, my head high, and for the first time in my life at this table I felt powerful. Victoria laughed. Oh, are we being dramatic now? Storming off like a teenager. She looked around the table for validation, but people were watching me with something like apprehension. They could feel the shift. The woman standing wasn't the one who'd sat down. I'm not storming anywhere, I said. I reached into my purse, the Hermes bag I'd bought myself last year, as a reminder that I'd made it despite them, not because of them. My fingers closed around the magazine. Forbes. December issue. I'd brought it on a whim, not planning to show anyone. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. I pulled it out slowly, letting the glossy cover catch the light. My face stared back at me from the front page, professional and confident in a way I'd never felt in this house. The headline read, The New Titans, 30 under 35 billionaires reshaping tech. I was number 3. 3. Out of the entire country, the entire world of people building empires and changing industries. Clarissa's smile faltered. Victoria's eyes narrowed, not understanding yet. My father leaned forward, squinting at the magazine in my hands. This came out last week, I said conversationally, placing the magazine in the center of the table next to Victoria's elaborate centerpiece. I didn't mention it because honestly I didn't think you'd care. And I was right. You didn't ask about my life. You assumed. I flipped to page 47, where my full profile spread across 4 pages with photographs from my office, my home, my life that they knew nothing about. Victoria snatched up the magazine, her face going pale as she read. My father took it from her with shaking hands. I watched them process the numbers. My company's valuation, $4 billion. My personal net worth, $1.3 billion. The deals I'd brokered with Fortune 500 companies. The patents I held. The acquisition offers I'd turned down. The humanitarian work I'd started, funding tech education for underprivileged kids who reminded me of myself. Brilliant children overlooked by people who should have believed in them. This can't be real, Victoria whispered. But it was. Every word. Every number. Every achievement they dismissed as fantasy while I was living it. It's real, I said. I spent the last 10 years building something revolutionary. Cybersecurity AI that's protecting banks, hospitals, government systems. We have contracts with 17 countries and 300 major corporations. Last month we turned down a $6 billion acquisition offer because we're worth more. I was the lead architect. I own 40% of the company. I'm a billionaire, Victoria. That little company you've been mocking? It's changing the world. The silence was deafening. Aaron's mouth hung open. Aunt Diane's eyes were bright with tears, pride or regret I couldn't tell. Uncle Thomas looked stunned. And Clarissa? Clarissa had gone white as the tablecloth, her wine glass trembling in her hand. That's wonderful, sweetheart, my father said weakly, but I heard the calculation in his voice. Already figuring out how to benefit from this, how to rewrite the narrative so he'd always supported me. Too late. 20 years too late. I turned to Clarissa. You should probably tell them, I said gently. Not cruel. Just honest. Before they read about it in the news. Clarissa's face crumpled. Don't, she whispered. Please. But I was done protecting people who'd never protected me. Your daughter isn't making junior partner, I told Victoria, who was still staring at my Forbes profile like it might disappear. Preston broke off the engagement 3 days ago. Clarissa's firm is under federal investigation for securities fraud, and she's being named personally in the lawsuit. I know because my lawyers handle corporate law too, and they're representing the prosecution. She's facing bankruptcy and possibly jail time. Victoria's head snapped up. That's a lie. Clarissa wouldn't. Mom, Clarissa interrupted, tears streaming down her face now. It's true. All of it. I tried to tell you last week, but you were so excited about dinner and I couldn't. She looked at me with something between resentment and desperation. How did you know? I've known for 3 months, I said quietly. My team identified your firm's irregularities during due diligence on a potential investment. When I saw your name on the documents, I warned our lawyers to handle it carefully. I tried to call you, Clarissa. 4 times. You never called back. This was the part that hurt in a different way. I'd wanted to help her. Despite everything, she was still the girl I'd grown up with, and I'd hoped we could have been different than our mothers. You knew and said nothing? Victoria shrieked, standing so fast her chair toppled backward. You could have warned us. Helped her. But instead you come here with your magazine like some kind of what? I interrupted, my voice cold. Like someone who succeeded despite being told I'd fail? Like someone who built something real while you were busy tearing me down? I tried to help Clarissa. She ignored me. Just like you've ignored me my entire life unless it was to criticize. The anger was clean now, surgical. 20 years of repression was burning away. My father found his voice. You can't blame your stepmother for being protective of Clarissa. Family means supporting each other. Family. The word exploded out of me. You want to talk about family? Where was family when Victoria threw away my college scholarship application? Where was family when I worked 3 jobs and you never asked if I needed help? Where was family when I graduated top of my class and you didn't come to the ceremony because it conflicted with Clarissa's sorority formal? Each question was a grenade and I watched them detonate across his face. We didn't know about the scholarship, my father said weakly. I told you. You said I must have misunderstood the requirements. You believed Victoria over your own daughter. I looked around the table at the silent witnesses. All of you saw it. Every holiday, every birthday. You watched her diminish me and you said nothing. You're all complicit. Aaron finally spoke up, his voice rough. You're right. I should have said something. I'm sorry. It was inadequate, but it was something. More than my father was offering. Victoria's face was purple with rage. After everything I've done for you, taking you in, trying to guide you. Taking me in? I laughed and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. This was my house. My mother's house. You moved into her bedroom 3 months after she died. You got rid of her things. You tried to erase her. And my father let you. I turned to him, this man I'd loved my entire life. This man who'd betrayed me in 1,000 small ways that added up to one massive abandonment. I loved your mother, he said quietly. But I also loved Victoria. I was trying to build a new life. You were trying to forget, I corrected. And I was a reminder of what you'd lost, so you let Victoria push me aside. Every time she diminished me, You were grateful because it meant you didn't have to feel guilty about moving on. The truth hung between us, ugly and undeniable. His face told me I'd hit the mark. I never meant. He stumbled over the words, reaching for me. I stepped back. You meant every bit of it. Every nod. Every silence. Every time you chose them. I picked up the Forbes magazine. I don't need your approval anymore. I stopped needing it years ago. But I came here hoping maybe, just maybe, you'd see me. Really see me. Instead, I got the same performance I've endured for 20 years. We can fix this, Victoria said suddenly, her mind clearly racing through scenarios. Your family. Family forgives. We'll have a proper celebration for your success. No. The word was final. Absolute. You'll do what you always do. Take credit for my success while taking no responsibility for your cruelty. You'll tell people you always believed in me. You'll rewrite history. But I'll remember. I'll always remember tonight. The night my father agreed I was worthless right before learning I'm worth more than he'll see in 10 lifetimes. I gathered my coat and purse, moving carefully, deliberately. Part of me wanted to run, to flee this house of painful memories. But I'd spent too many years running. Tonight I would walk out with dignity. Clarissa was sobbing openly now, her perfect facade completely shattered. Preston, I noticed, had left without saying goodbye to anyone. Rats fleeing a sinking ship. What about Clarissa? Victoria demanded, grasping at anything. You said you could help her. You have lawyers. Connections. She's your sister. Stepsister, I corrected. And I'm not abandoning her the way you abandoned me. My lawyers will reach out with options. Pro bono. I looked at Clarissa directly. I meant what I said before. I tried to warn you. I'm still willing to help you through this, but it'll be on my terms. No more games. No more competition. Just honest help between two women who deserved better mothers. Clarissa nodded, unable to speak. Victoria looked between us, confused by this show of grace she'd never modeled. That was the difference between us, I realized. She taught me what not to be. My father stood, his face older than I'd ever seen it. Don't go like this. Please. We can talk, really talk. I know I've made mistakes. Mistakes. I turned to him one last time. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. A mistake is being late to a recital. What you did was make a choice. Every single day for 20 years, you chose comfort over courage. You chose a woman who hated your daughter over the daughter who needed you. Those weren't mistakes, Dad. That was a choice. I felt tears finally escaping, hot on my cheeks, but my voice stayed steady. And I'm making a choice now. I'm choosing me. I walked to the door and with my hand on the handle I turned back one final time. They were all frozen there like a terrible family portrait. Victoria clutching the Forbes magazine, my father half risen from his chair, Clarissa destroyed by her own deceptions, and the silent witnesses who'd let it all happen. This was the last time I'd see this scene. I was certain of it. I hope the turkey was worth it, I said softly. Because that's the last meal we'll share. I'm done being the daughter who isn't enough. I'm done shrinking myself so others can feel big. I built an empire from nothing because you taught me I'd have nothing from you. So thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Dad. You made me strong by showing me exactly who not to be. I opened the door. Cold December air rushed in, shocking and clean. Behind me I heard my father calling my name, but I didn't turn around. Outside my car waited, a Tesla I'd designed half the security system for. My phone buzzed with messages from my actual family. My team, my friends, the people who'd believed in me when blood relatives couldn't. As I drove away I didn't look in the rearview mirror. That part of my life was over. The girl who'd needed their approval was gone. In her place was a woman who'd achieved everything they'd said was impossible. But the victory felt hollow. I'd won the war and lost something I could never get back. The fantasy that one day they'd love me the way I'd always loved them. The tears came harder now in the privacy of my car. Success couldn't erase the fact that my father had agreed I was worthless. Money couldn't buy back the childhood I'd lost to Victoria's cruelty. Fame couldn't heal the wounds of being unwanted in my own home. I was a billionaire, accomplished and powerful. And I was also still that 12-year-old girl watching her father choose someone else. Some victories I realized taste like grief. And that's okay. Because I chose myself. Finally, painfully, completely, I chose myself. And sometimes that has to be enough. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that they're enough exactly as they are. Drop a comment below about your own experiences with family dynamics. Your story matters too. And remember, the family you choose is just as valid as the family you're born into. Sometimes more so. Subscribe for more stories about resilience, survival, and choosing yourself. Because you deserve to be chosen.